so the camera is right where Bender's at.
Okay.
If you want to
Make sure my ping pong ball is facing it at all times.
Am I backwards or am I forwards? You'll never know.
The answer is yes.
I'm watching the video right now.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. My hands over here.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to VR Verdict Podcast, episode 113. I am PJ.
Wookie?
And we're here talking to Don Carson from the Walkabout game, but I always space your guys' company name. Why do I do
Mighty
that?
Coconut.
That's it.
Yes.
How can you forget that, PJ?
I don't know.
Come on.
So, Don, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role there and what you do and how that's working out for you?
You bet. Mighty Coconut is a small but growing team started by Lucas Martel, who started on his own to create Walkabout Miniature Golf, and it's become really quite a popular Quest title. And I think a lot of that is certainly sort of rock solid physics, but I think more than anything, a lot of our compliments we get from players is, I reconnected with my dad. Or during COVID, my siblings and I every week would play miniature golf. And I think we just sort of hit a perfect product for the hardware and the time that we're in. My job title is Senior Art Director. The senior part really is mainly because of my age. I have a gray beard you can't see more than anything. And we're much more of an ensemble. Unlike any place I've ever worked before, pretty much everybody has a say and everybody has their hands in on every one of the courses we work on. And everything that leaves me and is handed to somebody else comes back better no matter who has touched it. So it's really a joy to be able to work with this small team. We're all working remotely. Most of the coconuts are in Austin, but that we have far-flung team members. We have Edward, who's in Australia. I am in Oregon, and we have folks in the East Coast as well. But it's a really, really a kind of a dream position right now, and I sort of pinch myself every day for getting to work on these courses.
Nice. Yeah, you guys are, like you said, the game is like, it runs solid, it's smooth, it's enjoyable, but the standout recently is all your extra content, like your extra courses you've been putting out. They're just killing it. Like the Don Quixote one was just so amazing as the first one to come out, and the last one, I'm gonna space the name on it. It's
Sweetopia.
Sweetopia is literally like, when I stepped into it, I'm like, I'm in the chocolate factory in Willy Wonka. Like, what the hell?
Yes.
So epic.
Yeah, and amazingly, they're getting better because we're currently working on multiple projects throughout to be released during the year. One of the IP projects we've announced is the Labyrinth with the Jim Henson Company, and I can say it's looking really good. I think that probably the secret is I've worked for lots of big corporations that do big IP projects, and a big corporation is usually tied to the sort of the spreadsheet decision making as far as which IP is used, and we're kind of going after IPs that just we as geeks would just love to do. And
That's awesome.
And while someone like Disney or Universal can't necessarily rationalize spending, $400 million on a 35-year-old, Jim Henson, Brian Froud project, we absolutely can. And we just are pouring all of our love for that franchise and that movie into this particular course. So I'm excited about it coming out.
Yeah, I can't imagine, just from what I saw, from my perspective, like the reaction to that announcement was huge. So I'm sure you guys see even more than that, but like that came out of nowhere. So how did you land on the Labyrinth as like the first big IP one?
Well, we have a wish list of all the things we'd geekfully love to work on. It was near the top, and we have a wonderful marketing team that went out and sort of knocked on doors. And so far, many of the people we've talked to have just sort of given us a hard yes. I mean, between the sort of the love of our product, and I think also because we have a firm foothold in VR, and a lot of companies and IPs really want to get their feet into it, but don't know how to start. Miniature golf seems to be a nice, friendly first step. And and hopefully the quality of our sort of obviously low poly design work allows for us to do sort of the miniature golf park interpretation of whatever their IP is.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's kind of a familiar thing that everyone can wrap their head around, because a lot of VR stuff, people would just, it goes right over the top of their head. So it's probably, like you said, a nice entry point.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and the reason I have the job I do now is that I actually wrote Lucas a fan letter. During COVID, some ex-Imagineer friends and I stayed connected by playing miniature golf a couple times a week. And every time we played, we just thought, this is so well done. We really should write them a fan letter. And finally, when Bogey's Bonanza came out, I said, I got to do it. So I wrote him a letter and just said, whatever you guys are doing, you're doing it right. You really knocked it out of the park. And I don't know if you know this, but you're following a lot of the rules we use in the theme park business as far as how to tell stories with environments that aren't necessarily linear stories like Once Upon a Time, but evoke a sense that something's been going on that enhances your experience. And at the end, I was invited as a brown bag speaker to the small Mighty Coconut team. And at the end, I said to Lucas, if you're ever hiring for artists, I'm interested. And he said, well, that's funny, you should mention it, because we're actually looking for a concept person. So last September, I became a coconut.
Nice. So what was one of the first courses you had a hand in then?
The deep dive course that I'm working a lot on is Labyrinth. The courses that are out right now, I've dabbled a little bit in, but they were well established before I arrived. Certainly, Coyote Valley and Shangri-La and Sweetopia were well underway. I did get a chance to do concepts for a lot of sort of little storytelling elements that are sprinkled around, but it's so blurry as to who's in charge of what and who did what. It's really nice to sort of have a lot of pride in the work of your coworkers, just because you're so in love with the finished product that who authored it is not as important that we authored it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah,
sounds like an awesome team to be on.
Yeah,
it is. I'm really lucky, and I've been doing this kind of work, not game work, but just sort of environmental design work for almost 40 years. So I feel blessed that I'm in this small little team working on these really, really nice projects that seem to be well received by our audience.
Yeah. So I have questions on your background and backstory, but before we get to that, David, the guy that introduced us, that I think, I don't know what part of the team he's on, but he's the first
he's our
person
marketing
I talked
guru.
To. Awesome. Yeah. He definitely wanted me to ask you how theme park design correlates into like mini golf design and course design.
Well, that was what I noticed with the Bogey's Bonanza, is that I worked for 6 years as a senior show designer at Walt Disney Imagineering, and was responsible for a bunch of the rides that were produced during the Disney decade. And about that same time, the game Myst came out, and I thought, wow, this is a video. This is basically a theme park attraction on my computer, except instead of it taking 15 minutes to get through, it's like 40 hours of time, and I filled a sketchbook full of notes and diagrams and stuff to get my way through it. And to me, it seemed really obvious that the design principles that we use in the theme park business for telling a story in a ride were potentially usable in a video game environment. And that was back in like 1995, 1994. And it took like 25 years before the technology kind of arrived where we could potentially design the equivalent of a theme park ride inside the computer, but also share that experience like we do when we go to a theme park, sitting next to each other, having this experience together. And so my fan letter to Lucas and the team was, I noticed you're doing this, do more of it. If you look at Shangri-La, Shangri-La's easy courses during the daytime, and it's not important to your experience, but what's happening is everybody's getting ready for a lantern festival. So there are mooncakes being prepared, there's like tea sort of spread around, there's musical instruments, there's actually paper lanterns being constructed, utterly it's not important to your experience as a mini golf player. But then when you go to the hard mode, which is at night, this celebration is kind of happening, and those lanterns have been released, which are sort of the iconic, beautiful sort of statement in that area. Storytelling in an environment doesn't have to hit you over the head. Oh, I figured who all the main plot point characters were and stuff. It can just be the sense that someone has been here, or I've just missed an activity. Bogies does it really nicely with the sort of placement of the bottles, the can of beans, the frying pan, and the knocked over furniture. And so if I have a role at Mighty Coconut, it's if there is an opportunity to sort of add that little bit of extra spice to an environment, that's what I bring to it, hopefully.
I love that because this is the perfect game for that, because for anyone who hasn't played it, you can play 4 to 5 people at a time. You know, it's just like real life. You're waiting for one person to take their swing. And so you guys have done an awesome job by, there's a ball on every hole to find. So you can kind of, while you're waiting for other people, you can find that. There's like a Easter egg hunt on every map. But like what you're saying with the storytelling, like you have plenty of time to like look around, and Wookie and I are kind of play stuff the same way, where we really just like check out every corner and nook and cranny, and I've noticed like a lot of what you're saying.
My turn. I would just keep walking around like, ooh.
It's just the perfect combo, because you have, like I said, you're waiting for 4 other people to swing. You have time to go look at these things and kind of develop the story in your head of what you're seeing and what happens, and it's really neat.
Exactly. But even in Sweetopia, there's a little like a growing patch where candy corns are being grown and harvested in a little wheelbarrow made out of chocolate bars. That's not important to anybody's existence, but it does add this sort of layer of storytelling that doesn't necessitate you knowing who the farmer is or that anybody participated in that at all. Another surprise that happened with that level was Edward, who is sort of a brilliant modeler and also a Blender's guru. He often is one of the last people to touch the model before it heads into Unity, and then all that sort of magical pixie dust happens, all the lighting and all that. And he, on a lark, placed a skeleton way, way, way at the base of this sort of very deep candy factory. And we just sort of went, oh, that's interesting. And it just sort of stayed there. There was no huge story behind it. It was just, he put it there. It was kind of funny. But that actually became quite huge with our players at this sort of dark humor of, some place as wonderful as this could potentially have the body of an OSHA, inspector at the base of the factory. But I think that's the kind of power that the placement of objects in an environment has to deepening your relationship with it, which also plays into the fact that you're getting to play a game together with, loved ones, friends, or even strangers.
Yeah. And kind of like your story, and before we started, you asked if Wookie and I lived in the same region, which we don't. We've said this a lot on the podcast, but the power of VR is to bring people together. Like we've played online games forever, because Wookie's been down south for 20 years or so. So we went from hanging out every day of our life to oh, I haven't seen Wookiee for 5 years. So as good as online games are, VR is just like he's right there to me right now. Like,
Yeah.
it's just it's so epic, and your game it really does a
VR
good job of it.
Yeah, VR takes it to another step because, like, before we really hung out in VR, it was kind of like Halo or Call of Duty, where I'm trying to throw a knife at him and shoot
Right.
him. And now, most of the time, it's
chatting.
like co-op. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
you start,
Well-
you stop talking, and then you like shoot him, and then you pick your talking back up. Like, okay, I'm done thinking. But it does
Well,
help.
that's almost all of our interactions are virtual. I've only met 2 of the coconuts personally. And Edward lives in Australia, and we have our weekly team meetings in Horizon workrooms. And I sit elbow to elbow with Edward, and we have, we know each other really quite well, even though we've never physically met each other.
That's crazy.
Online
So
friendship.
yeah. You're gonna say anything, Wookie? Sorry.
I just said online friendship. It's kind of
Yeah.
just weird. You get to know them really well.
Yeah, it's true.
So, whoever does your Walkabout Twitter page is awesome. By the way,
That's David.
they react and respond. Oh my god, it's so funny, all the stuff he does on there. But I play Walkabout with another podcast, Let's Talk Oculus Guys, a lot. And just a little story for you. This rock right here is in the Garden of Babylon course. I don't remember the whole number, but it's
I think it's number 9.
Yeah,
It's
so you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know that rock.
One of us just like, oh, look at that rock. We hit it and it worked perfectly. I think someone got a hole in one and it became Ramp Rock and it became this thing. So now on their podcast, they have that exact poster and they just gave it to us. So it's perfect. This is the first episode we have. Yeah, it just like we built our own story because so much has spawned off of that jokingly and behind the scenes. It's funny. So I just thought I'd share that with you. It's pretty cool. But
yeah, well, and my friends, when we play, all of us are really bad at miniature golf. You'd think I would be better at it, but it's our score has so little to do with the reasons we get together.
Yep.
And the game is what is the excuse. But often we will pick what course we play based upon our mood. So if it's especially hot, we do Seagull Stacks hard because it's snowing there, or if we just want to chill out, we'll go to Tourist Trap at night, just because that tropical breeze that is non-existent cools you down.
Yeah.
Has an impact.
So
just one thing. My favorite part about most games, the thing that draws me to games, is the environment. So I bought Walkabout Mini Golf, but I haven't actually gotten to play it yet. So I kind of want to. After this, I really do want to jump in, but it's like just to hear the fact that you put like all those details in there. Like I said before, like I'm a guy. PJ and I both just walk around and stuff. Like the storytelling you can do in environments is just crazy. Like there's Ubisoft games called like The Division. The first one, you're in like snowy New York, collapse of civilization, all that stuff. But like the amount of things you see that just tell a story about, like you have no idea who they were, but like you just see like cross, like like a cross of somebody's like loved one, or like a stuffed animal by all these photos, and it's just like you just sit there and you just kind of like a little bit of backstory or something explodes in your brain because you're trying to figure out, you just can't help it. You're like, who were these people? So
yeah,
I just love that.
We're all detectives to a certain extent, and I think probably part of that comes from survival mechanism. You want to go out and hunt mastodons. You want to make sure nothing's going to jump out at you. So you're constantly looking in your physical environment for clues to tell you, is it safe? What's going on here? What can I do? How do I relate to it? And because we have that built into us, coming into a VR environment gives us that playground, or give us as designers a way to play with the fact that people innately are already looking for meaning. And so we just suggest meaning, but we don't necessarily, cross all the T's and dot all the I's. We say, hey, in this world of candy, candy corn grows out of the ground. Of course it does.
No, I mean,
Oh,
no.
I
It's
see.
the first thing that should come to your mind. It's
Right,
a s'more.
exactly. A s'more.
A lot of games, I think, like, again, flat screen gaming and stuff there's too much of a HUD, there's too much of a mini map, and all you're doing is following checkpoints. And it's like, you don't even need an environment. But I think that's making everybody so boring and dumb. I think it's actually hurting our intelligence because we're not using our spatial reasoning or whatever you would call it. So thankfully, people in VR, it's harder to make a HUD in VR. They just don't work. So you got to figure it out.
Yeah,
that's fun.
Agreed. Well, and I think that one of the sort of special things about this particular product is that you've got the theme park world on one side, which is has demands of safety and cost and that bringing people physically through an attraction where they don't die or that doesn't cost many billions of dollars means that a very specific product has to be created. And architecture in the other, on one corner, is much similar, except it has certain rules that come from the architectural world. And then you have the gaming world, and the gaming world is often it may or may not know it, but it is actually beholden to the way it's always been done. The expectations of the player is that I'm going to make achievements and I'm going to have these kind of buttons and I'm going to strafe this way. A lot of the design is based upon expectations of what the game players have for how they're going to interact. And so we kind of get that out of the way really quickly because you show up, there's a little golf shack. You pick a ball, you pick a putter, and then even Grandpa can figure out in about 2 swings how to make the mechanics work. And then you're kind of done. You just have 18 holes to get through, and you have a wonderful conversation about the weather and what they're up to and how they're feeling and how badly they're playing. We kind of skirt around the architecture, the theme park needs, and the game demands. And what that leaves us is, how do we make this a pleasant place to be in? And then also, in a very tongue-in-cheek way, how do we create the miniature golf version of it? I think one of the reasons why the IPs that we talk to are so friendly to the idea of doing a product in collaboration is that there's not a lot of seriousness. It's just, the Labyrinth version of a miniature golf park is a very different endeavor than making a film or some other thing. It is allowed to be playful and fun, and it can do fan service, but its fan service is we're serving ourselves as fans. We're making the choices we're making because we love the IP. We love this place. We want to go there. And oh, by the way, we also get to play miniature golf.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So you mentioned your background of 40 plus years or so. You want to walk us through a little bit of that? I have some very specific questions. I've been honestly, I've been looking at your website and your blog and all that, finding all kinds of crazy things. So
very
I'll jump in.
Okay. Well, my background, I'll just squeeze 40 years really quickly. I was that kid who drew all the time, and the drawings were escape. When Star Wars came out in 1977, I would go home and draw it. And drawing it wasn't just, it was fun to draw, but it was an opportunity for me to inhabit the world of Star Wars or whatever I was drawing. And I was actually thinking about, what is that sort of thing that triggers you wanting to do a career, for the rest of your life. And I remember when I was about 9, I found some old slides that my dad had. And my dad was the display director for Macy's, which is West Coast, the big department store. They have one in New York as well. And before that, he was the display person for Hinks, which was a small local department store in Oakland, California. And there was a picture of what looked like an ice cavern on a slide, really dark, but it was definitely an ice cavern. And I asked him about it, and he said, "Oh, I used to be responsible for designing the Meet Santa exhibit or display at Hinks every Christmas. And the line was so long, we had to have him stand in something other than just the underwear section. So every time we got a shipment box, I would cut the corner of each cardboard box, and I would stack these points up in the corner of the studio. And then at Christmas time, he would take it with a staple gun. He would staple these points all over the walls and the ceiling. He'd cover it with aluminum foil, put twinkle lights in it, and turn the lights out. And it made this incredible sort of ice cavern that I could only dimly see in the slide. And to me, the idea that someone could have a job where they took cardboard boxes and transported people into the North Pole was what I wanted to do for a living. I went and became an illustration major because it was the only career I could think of where I could draw for a living. I graduated, went into commercial illustration, which I instantly realized I hated more than anything. Working for advertisers was not my happy place. And I found out about Walt Disney Imagineering because I didn't know that existed. I'd gone to Disneyland many times, but I didn't know that people actually got paid to design that stuff. So that became my that's my goal. I want to be an Imagineer. And that sort of striving for designing place ended up getting me the job as the head art director for the Renaissance Pleasure Fairs in California, both Northern and Southern, where I was taking my illustration skills and applying it to doing designs for very, very low budgeted recreations of Elizabethan England in the woods. And at the end of the 80s, Disney, which is famously hard to get into, was having a huge hiring spree to gear up for what was called the Disney Decade. And I got swooped in with the combination of an illustrator portfolio and all this environmental design experience I was having at the Renaissance Fair. And the very first project they gave me was to design the Splash Mountain for Walt Disney World. And when I was given to it, I was like, oh, I get to do the third of something, because already there was one at Disneyland and Tokyo's was well underway. But it turned out to be the perfect project because it was so unheralded as far as dream projects Imagineers get to work on. I pretty much got to do everything. And the flume width had changed. So it changed the width of all the scenes. So the entire attraction needed to be redesigned, which I got to do at the green age of like 27. And I stayed there for 6 years before my son was born. And then I asked the powers that be, would you still use me if I wasn't living in Los Angeles? And they assured me that would never happen. So I looked at the gaming industry as another place to sort of apply my theme park, my placemaking skills. And I worked at Dynamics in Eugene, Oregon, on a variety of projects. They were owned by Sierra Online at the time. And then I was there for about a year, and then Disney called back and said, all right, we'll use you, even if you're not living in Los Angeles. And so then I did this sort of weird hybrid career of designing theme parks and video games, always with an eye on this idea that one day the sort of theme park storytelling abilities would be applicable to video games. I worked as the art director for There.com, which was a competitor of Second Life 1. And then eventually IMVU, which was created by the founder of There, left and created basically an online massive multiplayer chat environment, and got to apply some of these theme park ideas. And then went back to the theme park world at the Hedema Group, where I worked on many DreamWorks projects and Universal projects. And then finally, I've ended up here at the job I was meant to do, which is miniature golf courses with sort of the design philosophy of a theme park experience.
It's so weird that somebody with a I don't know if the term crazy is, offensive to this, but like it's such a crazy career because it's like you said esoteric earlier, but it's, designing theme parks, all stuff, and it just all lines up. But like, pardon me, after 40 years of, paving that way for yourself, just now, like when we first started talking, you were like dream job. Like, you worked at Disney and all these other things and Sierra and things, and like now you're in your dream job. It's like
Yeah.
some of those
Well,
are
they were
somebody
dream
else's
jobs
dream
too.
job too.
Well, Disney was definitely Everest. But once you've, in your early 30s, you've climbed Everest, and then you're all ready to climb another mountain and realize there aren't any that are nearly as big as that. So I've always been hungry for that, creating an ice, cavern out of cardboard boxes kind of experience, that surprise of being able to be transported to another world through design choices. And the thing I was very valuable about learning illustration was that illustration taught me that as a visual storyteller, the artist can actually manipulate the emotions of the viewer by the choices they make with color, value, perspective, composition. And when I went into the theme park business, it's the same. As you move linearly from one theatrical scene to the next, you're actually being given an opportunity to feel different ways about the places that you're in, and how you feel is a lot based upon the movies you've seen, the books you've read, the experiences you've had in your life. And what VR does is it tickles that same part of your brain, and the context of your experience is as important as the experience. And when that experience is shared, like playing miniature golf, our brains almost can't distinguish in memory that cafe in France or that miniature golf game in Shangri-La as being of lesser value. We had an emotional connection. Doesn't mean I don't want to go to France, but it means that I do get to hang out with my friends in another state whenever I want to, and have a really, really good conversation in an environment that we laugh about, that we like being in, that's not taking itself too seriously. And also, I'm not being shot at.
Good point.
I was going to say, you don't have to take a big, smelly air ride and airplane trip to go hang out with you.
That is right.
Getting shot at.
Well, in the theme park business, there's definitely some fear that, oh dear, virtual reality is going to take over, and why would we have theme parks? Virtual reality is never going to be able to trump being able to eat a Dole Whip next to your family while riding Pirates of the Caribbean. Never. But it does give you an opportunity to connect to them in a way that a Zoom call has proven to be poor at.
I have I'm sure a lot of people do, but I bought a projector to play games on, and I lucked out, and I'm like, this is fantastic. And I got a screen and a surround sound with a subwoofer, and I can watch any movie with a really good experience, but it still can't beat that experience in a theater when everybody's laughing. Usually people ruin it, or something goes wrong, but like those 4% of the time where it's like everyone's in the same wavelength and laughing and not throwing popcorn at each other, not talking. You can't replace that with anything. So I get that. Like, you can't go stay in a Millennium Falcon hotel or whatever's going on in some of those parks now. You can see it in VR, but it's not like wake up in a spaceship.
Well, and there's a couple times in one's life where you have a moment which really sort of is a pivotal one. And recently, my daughter said, "Hey, let's play a round of miniature golf," and I took her to Shangri-La Hard, where we played a terrible round of golf. And I said, "Hey, if you've got a few minutes, I'd like to fly out here to the furthest monastery and just sit on the roof with you, and we'll just look back at the course, which is this beautiful. All these night lanterns are floating up, and there's the Himalayas behind it." And she's known what I've done for a living. She's grown up with me doing tons of high-end theme park attraction design. And we're sitting there on the roof together at night, looking at this beautiful scene. And she looked over and she said, "Dad, I finally get it."
That's awesome.
She said, you've been talking about this for years, about how you really think that there's a way in which these environments could bring people together. And she said, "This is why you're doing this." And I said, "Yes." And now I've got a product where I can just point at it. I just go, remember what I've been saying for the last 25 years? That. Go play golf.
Really cool.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
It's like, if you have any tips for other people creating games, because that's something that is sorely missing from so many experiences, and I just think people just don't have the sensibility. I think I have a in tune that can tell what I like, but if I start from scratch, I don't know that I'd be able to do it. I don't know. But
well,
games.
What's interesting is this, like I've said, it's a lot of it comes from sort of the ghost of Walt gave us permission to think about the way in which we design a place. And a lot of that is what I call meet expectations and then exceed them. So if you're going to do a pirate game, your audience is going to come in with preconceived ideas of what a pirate experience is and should be. And your job as a designer is to deliver upon that. But once you've delivered upon that, then you can exceed it. Do something bigger. And I think Sweetopia is an example of that. I think a lot of people have dreamed and produced sort of Candyland-like experiences, and Willy Wonka too. But in a way, and I'm tooting the horn of the people I work with, the Sweetopia takes it to a whole nother place.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother experience because it delivers on expectation and then exceeds it, by giving not only layers and layers of story, but also there's a dead guy at the bottom of the factory. Well, and I'd say that of the games that I have loved, that I feel really do a marvelous job of transporting me, sort of the BioShock series comes to mind, Skyrim comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those are placing me in a place where it's alien. I'm under the ocean in an Art Deco collapsed New York City, and yet every single thing that I encounter reinforces my fantasy of what that would be like. And exceeds it. So if you're making a game about pirates, and then you find out that the head captain is Santa Claus, well, okay, sign me up. I want to be a pirate on Santa's pirate ship. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about when you build upon expectations, and then once you've done so, exceed them.
That's solid advice, because a lot of people, there's a lot of pirate games out there that they're all kind of bland. It's like, okay, I turn a ship, I shoot, it works.
Yeah,
but I don't think they don't turn it on its head and just add something crazy like that, and then have to then you've got a whole other layer of fun to just kind of put the finishing touches on everything,
right?
Santa style or something. So
right. Yeah, if the crew is all elves and they're all like 3 feet tall, but yet they're still pirates.
Yeah, and that immediately opens up so many possibilities. I'm like, what would those elves as dirty, nasty, scurvy pirates like? What? And you have 50 personalities that come to your mind. It's like,
and they're shooting each other out of the cannons. I mean,
of course they are, and they're all high on candy canes. They
all got rotten teeth because they don't have toothbrushes and oranges.
Well, and then. In that case, the thing designs itself. I mean, you just you just sit back and the ideas sort of tumble out on the table, and your job is just to fulfill your best version of it that you possibly can. So that's why it's for me it's the best job ever, is that I get to do that on a daily basis.
You get to take some standard thing and then try to shove something that doesn't fit right where it should go.
Well, miniature golf. I mean, for goodness sakes. Yeah. we're gonna recreate the hanging Bible, the Gardens of Babylon. Oh, by the way, there's also miniature golf. That's the best.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So I have to ask, again, like I said, I was looking through your website and all your stuff kind of creeping a little bit, but you have these different rides, and I couldn't really tell the Pumpkin Town ride, right? Especially, is that some part of something, or is that just a design you did, or is that available to? Because just the video, normally a video doesn't do VR justice, but you can tell in those videos it still looks really epic. It's probably one of the best videos I've seen of kind of really showing how VR works. And maybe it's not even VR yet, but that's what it looked like. So I was just curious, what's that about?
So my career has been mostly under non-disclosure agreements. So I have tens of thousands of pieces of art that will never be seen by anybody but my daughter, who doesn't care. And so COVID happens, and I all of a sudden, what business am I in? I'm in a business designing places where lots of people get together in groups and breathe on each other. And so the work level kind of went down. And I have this very esoteric blog I've been waxing on for a decade or more now about really off the wall, very specific theme park design principles. And one of the things I never got a chance to do was I wanted to show people what the whole arc of the process would be to create a theme park ride. And so here I am. I got lots of time. I'm going to do a fake theme park ride, and I'm going to document on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube the process. And so my first idea was I was going to do a Game of Thrones ride, and that just was way too big. So I said, well, what if when you go to the county fair and you go to those sort of rubber snake, smelly, scary, spook house kind of things that arrive on the back of a semi truck and gets assembled. I thought, what if we did that, but you did something that was kid friendly and like a sort of It's the Small World meets Halloween. And so I took as a footprint 2 semi trucks and put a little dark ride on it. And I created this ride where you go through a town that is inhabited by pumpkin people. That was it. And it was inspired by the German Halloween toys and decorations of the 30s, which are awesome. Inspired by sort of Mickey Mouse and the Fleischer cartoons. It's a very specific time period. And I'm not a huge fan of the gory, scary pop-up jump scare part of Halloween, but I really liked this sort of friendly, everybody's, no matter what kind of squash you are, there's lots of, acceptance for you in Pumpkin Town. And so I started by building a foam core model, and then I scanned the foam core model, and then I built it in SketchUp, and then I used real-time rendering software, Enscape, to just sort of drive around inside my ride of black and white marker sketches. And the idea was it was posting on Instagram, today I did this, and now I made the sets, and now I'm scanning the sets, and now here's a little video of the process. Well, COVID didn't stop. So what was intended to just be just here's a little sample slice of the process. By the end, I had a fully orchestrated, my friend Cullen Vance did the music, his family did the voices and the songs, awesome. Full color ride through as a rendered experience, but also we brought it into Unity and we exported it out as a VR experience. And if you, on the Oculus Quest, if you go into Oculus TV and you type in Pumpkin Town, you can ride it. It's actually a VR version of it.
That will be what I do after we're done here, because I freaking loved it.
PJ's avatar has another pill, like a third pill.
This is a family show. Okay, come on.
I'm sorry.
So before I knew it, I had a full-on finished virtual ride, and my friend Cullen, who did the music, said. Then I thought I was done because his job was purely to be a way to illustrate the design process. And then Cullen said, every morning my son Brendan asks if he could ride Pumpkin Town a couple times in VR. And it hadn't dawned on me that the byproduct of this exercise could be a ride that someone would want to go on more than once. And about the same time, as I was finishing that up, my friend Daniel Singer, who goes by Rover, he and I worked at Imagineering in the past, and he said, I really wish someone would recreate the 1958 version of the Alice in Wonderland ride from Disneyland, which has long since been updated. The original one is gone. And I said, well, Daniel, I'm not doing anything. And I have a computer. And I thought, I don't want to do this by myself. So Daniel, my friend Heidi Hirsch, and my friend Karen Thompson, both colorists I worked with at Disney, we collaborated. And from the day we started talking about doing it to the day that you had a fully ride-through version of that attraction was 2 months. with the original soundtrack, with all the art recreated in color, all fully animated. Also available on the Oculus Quest, Oculus TV. Just type in Alice 1958, and you can ride through that recreation. And I think for me, what dawned on me was that as a theme park designer, any theme park designer, because of this, it takes 5 years or more for these attractions to get built and finished. That if you have 3 attractions in your entire career that you're willing to say, I am proud of how this came out, Pumpkin Town was the 4th. I felt as much pride for Pumpkin Town as I did for Splash Mountain, which took 4 years of my life, and this other thing took me 2 months of my life. And it also it opened the door to this idea, even in my own imagination, that one could have projects that have a much shorter lifespan in its design process, but an equal amount of emotional impact on the audience. And I was 150% responsible for the quality of the finished product, which a theme park probably has 1,000 people who have a say. And so you're lucky if the finished product is something that you can say, that's exactly what I intended it to be. So that's it. Yeah.
For anyone watching the video, we can't see it, but I hope you don't mind. But I took some of those characters and they're on the video overlay. So when you go back and watch this, because I love what you just said about Halloween, and like I don't like the gore and stuff, but I love Halloween. Like I love the all the different, like, even if you call it kiddie stuff, I don't know what you'd call it, but just the designs and the characters and things. And I was watching your video and you're like, yeah, I'm designing this, and I'm thinking about what this person does for a living, what kind of music they listen to. And it was so much depth where you're going to see that person for like probably 10 seconds on the ride. And you're like, that just blew my mind. Like, that is so awesome. Like, you put that much like background into it, and you can really tell, and it shows.
Well, and that's what we're doing with the miniature golf stuff too, is that each of us are infusing these choices with that kind of backstory, because it's not consciously recognized necessarily by the audience, but emotionally they go, this is a lovely place. I like being here, or I feel relaxed here. Well, that's the highest praise we could ask for.
Yeah. And it's in VR games, like there are some games where like you just load the game up, and sometimes I don't even leave the menu because the menu area is just so amazing. Like you can just sit in it for a while. And your guys' courses are, obviously it's part of the game, which is nice, but you just like being there because it's just tranquil. Just, like, there's different
fly around
times of days. Yeah.
Talk and fly. Yeah.
And then you mentioned the Alice in Wonderland. That was another video I watched where I've never been on the original ride, obviously, but like there's a point where like, Alice in Wonderland gets a little crazy, and like it looked like it went upside down. And I was just curious, like designing something for strictly VR where you kind of have no limits, because I'm sure that's got to be hard to do in real life on an actual theme park.
Right.
Do you find that your options and your imagination kind of get out of control and you have to rein it in because you really are limitless, or does that not really come into play?
Well, the absolute worst thing you can do to a creative person is tell them you can do anything you want. That's the worst, because then you just completely just freeze. Yeah. But if you tell someone, I've got a 20 by 20 foot box, and I have the color orange, and here's some Sharpies. Well, that's the best thing you can give them, because then they can do anything within the context of that limitation. And the limitation that applies to show building for a theme park, you have to keep the audience safe. You got to keep them in the vehicle. You want them to feel like they could touch stuff, but they can't touch stuff because that would be bad. And also, we know that the Quest is not a full tethered PC that we're connected to. So we have very strict limitations as to what we can and cannot visually produce. Well, that's the best thing you could give us as creative people. And we will push on that and try to see what we could get out of it while still holding on to the limitations of what the technology offers us today.
That's awesome.
Without making them barf.
without making them barf. You can say the same thing about theme park rides.
True.
Yeah.
We've kind of had the similar conversation in the past. Wookie and I just like we're big fans of Family Guy when the early days, and before you could like say a lot of stuff on TV, like you had that creative limit where you had to like it made you funnier because you couldn't do or say these things, and you could just hint. So the hint was funnier than actually just saying it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Kind of the same thing.
The South Park episode came around where they said, the poop word 150 times. And it was just like, by the end of that episode, it was like, I'm whatever, 25, 30 years old, and I don't want to swear anymore. It's not fun.
Right.
They ruined it.
You ruined swearing.
Poop.
So, out of all your experiences, because again, we'll have links to a lot of your stuff in the show notes, so anyone watching, listening can look. But on your website, you have a list of things you're into, from art, digital art, concept art, theater, like it just goes on and on. So, out of all of that so far, what's like your favorite medium to work in or participate in?
Well, I'm a early adopter, so as soon as new technology comes out, I jump on it. So, like, I had the first, the Oculus DK, and constantly working along. And what fuels me is that anything that can help me visualize the pictures in my head the fastest, and if I can share that experience, I will learn it. And so, coming to Mighty Coconut was really I came with at least enough understanding of these tools that I could jump into a game making environment and produce the work that was necessary to support everybody else's job. As I've gotten older, in fact, Heidi, who I mentioned before, who I play golf with a lot, we were talking, we're both in our late 50s, early 60s. And she said, I realized that there's at least 3 phases in one's career, certainly in the career that we were in. And one is when you're young and just out of college, it's all about where I get to work. I'm working at Imagineering. And then it becomes less about where you work, but much more about the prestigiousness of what you get to work on. And so it's like, well, I'm getting to work on Harry Potter, and that's really great. And I get to work with these people. And then later in your life, it's much more about who you get to work with. Doesn't matter where I work. Doesn't matter what what project I'm working on. If I get to work with genuinely wonderful people, that's a good life. And I think that there's a 4th phase as you get older where you realize the act of doing it is enough. So the act of drawing, I draw now more than I was doing in the theme park world, despite the fact that I also jump into Gravity Sketch and build, models with Lucas and Henning that become courses. But it's the act of doing it becomes the joy. And what's nice is that when you're enjoying that creative process, it's visible in the finished product, whether or not it's recognized or consciously. They just go in and go, I like this, and this feels really good, and you can tell that the people who did this really loved it, and that's because we do, and we like each other, and we praise each other, and it's very, very easy to be constantly surprised on a daily basis by what someone produces, because it's so much better than you thought it could be. Like, wow, that's really wonderful. We're animating characters now. We haven't done that before, except for a sheep or 2. And they're just beautiful. They're just amazing. Yeah. And Craig, who is a sort of our Unity magician, really is doing things with shaders, and the way the Chocolate River works is leaps beyond where the water was doing in the first courses. There's a level of love and attention and craft that make the process of making it worth doing.
Do you do any like freestyle like art in VR in any of the apps or anything like that? Or
well, yeah, I'm always playing toys. Basically, it's I can do this. a fellow artist and I, we split and purchased a 3D printer. So
Nice.
building stuff in Gravity Sketch and then printing it and having it physically in the world is just cool. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it's cool. So I do that. I've never been do art, hang it on the wall and stand in front of it and say, look at the art I did. My art is much more a means to an end, is communicating an idea that then will be handed to another person who will then make it a reality, will add themselves to it. But now with VR, I can make that thing and we can meet inside of it and have a meeting. About it, as opposed to a drawing, which is, here's my sketch of what I think it can be. And this sketch can lie a lot about the dimensions and whether or not it's buildable and whether it's affordable. But when you're standing in a SketchUp model in VR, you're standing in front of the thing. And that communicates not just to fellow creative people, it communicates to engineers and architects and fabricators as well.
Yeah. It's got to be so cool. Like, I've dabbled in art. I don't know. I don't know. I don't draw very well. Wookie does, but
You do too.
It just got to be so cool to create something so elaborate and just see it realized. And actually, now you can hop in VR and like it exists, and you can walk around it and just look at it from different angles. Like, it's got to be so amazing.
It is 1,000 times great. And because in the theme park world, you could spend 3 years of your life design a ride that opens in Beijing, but never be invited to ever go to Beijing. So here's this thing you've built for years of your life, and you will never actually see it. But at Mighty Coconut, we spend about 9 months, from beginning to opening of a new course, and it went from just, I have this idea, to meeting friends and playing inside the environment with amazing music and lighting and effects and animations that only took 9 months. You can't beat that.
Yeah, and anyone can go to it.
Anyone in the world who has a headset can go there and participate. And the best of all is that not only did they get to play golf, but they got to get closer to each other.
Yeah. And it's in mini golf especially, like, it's always seems like a fun idea in real life, and then you get there and it's like either hot or the course is just terrible, or there's like kids everywhere. There's an endless amount of issues with it
coming up.
So you're like, all right, then you just start like hitting the ball, like, let's get out of here.
It disintegrates faster than a Grand Theft Auto PlayStation.
Yeah. Whereas like, you have that same thought, like, mini golf sounds really fun, and you can just hop in VR and you don't get any of that. You just get all the good stuff, and it's like, that was awesome. And you're done.
Yeah. Well, and Lucas and Henning, who are really responsible for the design of each of the courses, when you think about it, they've made hundreds of them, and each course is filled with unique ways in which to experience putting a ball. I honestly do not know how they do it, and most of my job is to stand out of their way and just make pretty things that support anything they want. But and they don't seem to be a loss for new ideas or new courses that they could come up with.
And that's what's amazing with the game, because like you said, you have like the normal mode, and then if you can unlock the hard mode, and it's the same holes, but they're like different and harder, and it's like, how
Yeah,
like with the Labyrinth, it makes sense to where you could make really crazy courses that no one's ever seen. But with the base game, it's kind of like standard mini golf for the most part up until the DLC. And you're like, how can you keep coming up with such interesting, like, not just venues, but like holes?
Yeah, I do not know how they do it. I don't, and also they will continue to polish it. So at the beginning, we usually have it's gray boxing is the word for it, is where you have a very, very minimally textured version of it. And we'll have play tests where we play an entire course, and I'll go, this is fine. And then it'll go through 4 more months of fine tuning. And Henning will go through and adjust and adjust and adjust. And what was there that during that gray box phase may not look at all like what the finished product is, because of that sort of loving attention to detail that he gives. Yeah. And also 1,000% of what we're doing is always in mind of what it's going to be like for the people playing it. How much fun will it be? And will it be hard, but not too hard? And are we servicing the Uber fans that, want to really be challenged, but we don't want to alienate, your 7-year-old or your grandma who you also want to have a good time.
Yeah. That's really neat. You can strike that balance with the game.
That's the goal.
And I play a lot of alphas and betas of games. We talk to a lot of devs, and I have the same problem. It's like, I want to be helpful and I give comments and feedback that I can, but to me, it's like, this is awesome. And then they hand you one a month later, like, holy crap, this is 10 times better. This is freaking amazing. Like, I can never say anything too terrible about it. And then I feel bad because they're like, why didn't you tell us about this? I'm like, I was just enjoying it.
Yep.
So I will be in a lot of trouble if I don't ask this question from the group I play the game a lot with.
Okay.
And then if you can't say anything, fine. And it's not about Labyrinth, so.
Okay.
Is the bog of eternal stench going to be there?
Am I going to hear Ludo talk? No. One of my favorite areas in traditional games and other things, like underwater stuff. And there's a lot of people that have the same feeling, apparently. So are there any plans or hints at underwater courses or anything like that you can say, or no? Or
let's see. Two ways to describe that. One is back to our conversation about meet expectations and exceed them. When it comes to Labyrinth, without being specific about what is and isn't in there, our job is to transport you to the movie. So there's a lot of things that people are going to expect to be there, and we want to deliver that. But also, we want it to be a fun miniature golf experience and be playful with the IP and the characters. So the same is true of what courses we're working on, and we have a very long list of things we cannot wait to start working on, and a good 5 or 6 that we are currently working on. And people are often giving us their top, 50 things that they want to see produced, and we are absolutely listening. We want to do those things too. And I think another thing that hopefully is really present when you see the new things that come out is that and Sweetopia was, I think, a really good example of it. We want to constantly surprise you by, I had no idea that was a place I could go, or this thing I want. Like, as an example, is that so many people wanted a miniature golf course that had a windmill in it. So our answer to that was Coyote Valley. Let's just not give you a windmill. Let's give you the Miyazaki every windmill we can think of version of it. And so all I can say is that we're working on things to delight our fan base, lovers of miniature golf, and also fulfilling that same list that I think a lot of them have for the places they want to play in. So
that's a really good answer.
Can you repeat the question though?
Yeah. Well, also without saying anything, coming in the next few weeks is another announcement, which I think is going to be wonderful, and awesome. We are so excited about talking about soon.
Starship Troopers.
All in the family. The miniature golf game. Yes.
Meathead. Strangely, and maybe not so strange, but one of my favorite parts of the game is after you've played a new course, whether it was normal or hard, you all come back to the lobby at the end, and all the balls you found just come pouring out onto the table. And you have this whole table, like, it's the coolest sound, and it's just like, it's so exciting. I don't know why, but I've also been joking around with, again, your Twitter account. Is there possibilities of special edition balls, like a VR Verdict ball, or anything like that, or
Luckily, I'm not responsible for that part of our process, so I can't say.
All right, I'll keep teasing on Twitter.
Okay.
But yeah, we're almost right on an hour. Is there anything we didn't get to that you want to talk about before we
Well,
go? Or?
One of the things that's been looping next to us is how much we use VR to make VR. And I think that's another thing that I love about here is that although I'm traditionally drawing on pieces of paper, and our meetings are in VR using Horizon Workrooms, we use Gravity Sketch a lot.
Right.
We will... Lucas and Henning and I will jump in there in collaboration mode, and we'll just start scribbling out the course. It's kind of amazing. It's a little like being one tentacle in an octopus. Things
Awesome.
are happening, and in about an hour and a half, all of a sudden, a very rough form of whatever course we're designing is done in front of us. Enough for us to be able to start iterating and figuring out what that design is, and that's unlike any experience I've ever had as a designer before. Yeah. And then it's a back and forth between the virtual stuff, and then we use Blender a lot as a company, and then it goes into Unity. And this back and forth between seeing it on paper, seeing it in VR, seeing it on the computer screen, and seeing it once again back in VR is this. It's unlike anything I've ever done before. And what's interesting too is that if you were to go to Gravity Sketch's website, you would think that the way they promote themselves, they do race cars and sneakers as a lot of what they want you to use your tool to create. I don't think necessarily they had in mind that giant miniature golf courses were going to be designed in the same process, same product. But I love that, and I think we're going to see more and more of that. And if you haven't had a chance to play Horizon Worlds, as far as a way to sketch out ideas and share that experience, I think it's another. We can't use that for our work, but I have lots of friends that I just hang out for fun, and we just make stuff for the act of making it together.
It's got to be like the coolest version of how someone draws a line and the next person continues off of that, where you're all just exactly like blowing it up.
Yeah, it's I think when you're super, super young, you have this idea that my idea, and I will implement it, and then the finished product will be 100% what I wanted it to be. And as you get older, you realize that actually the serendipity and the magic of collaboration, allowing other people to have a piece of that process, means that you can have the same amount of pride. Like, I didn't work hardly at all in Coyote Valley, but when it came out, I was bursting with pride for my company, for the people I get to work with, at what a fabulous job they did. And I feel that way about everything that's come since the DLCs and the many things that are coming soon and into the future. I just am so happy for us, for what we get to work on, how polished we get to make it. And then we're rewarded by people saying, thank you. And my dad and I get to spend quality time together, even though he lives 600 miles away.
Yeah, it's pretty epic.
Yeah.
I thank you guys for the game, because Wookie and I haven't played it yet, but I play with the other podcasts and a couple other people, and it's just, we've never had a bad time on it. Like, even before like all the DLC came out and we played most of the holes like a lot, never had a bad time. It was always enjoyable. It's just fun to hang out and relax and talk, like you said. So it's just a great environment for all that.
That's wonderful.
For listeners that haven't played it like me, even if you own a different mini golf game and you're thinking, do you need two? Like, that's why I didn't jump into it. For the longest time, I'm like, he won't shut up about this Walkabout Mini Golf, but we stopped playing the other one that I bought. But I bought that one. But apparently there's something super special about this one. You should buy
it. You should give it a try. Also, you don't need, if you own the DLCs, you don't need to buy them, because you can be his guest. And so make the foundation investment, but then your brother can gift you the fancy new stuff.
The joy of sweetness.
Sweetopia. You can
Give me a
go
hook
look
on
for
it,
that
so I
dead
gotta play
body
it
at
by
Sweetopia. Yeah.
I'll go find him.
Yeah,
Ask him if he's okay.
Yeah.
You gonna get better, buddy?
As a gamer, I honestly appreciate the other things you guys do. Like you have crossplay, so you buy it once, you have it, on the same platforms. I just love those little things because even some of the bigger studios that should be doing things like that aren't, and a lot of the little people and smaller dev teams are doing all the right things. So I always appreciate that.
Yeah, and when there's things are like that are more genuine in the experience, and you take down some of those barriers, so you can just get in the game and have fun with your friends. Like, I'll go buy all the DLC just to support the company that's like doing things just because they're cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody's like that.
There was no guarantee that the DLCs would be something that someone would want us to pay extra once they purchase the game.
Yeah.
But what we found is that people are like, take my money, just take it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very much money, and if I think that it's supporting and letting you guys do more of this, then I'm willing to pay it. And I can definitely tell you that DLC money is what is fueling the future. So every single penny counts, and it gives us permission to think bigger and better for every course that we produce.
Yeah, paying for quality products shouldn't be a problem. But some people just they throw money in microtransactions. Like, throw a little bit of money at stuff that actually is worth it.
Mm-hmm.
There was one other quick story that I have a couple guys at work. I got them into VR, and this was one of the first games they got, so we play once in a while. And we heard the avatar. You guys redid the avatar system and added hats and stuff. And a funny joke was, one of the guys is like, I need a pinwheel hat that has a propeller on it that I can wear because I just think that'd be funny. And it came out, and you guys included one. But the funny thing is, I didn't know it because I never saw it, because I went to, I think, one hat, and then I never thought about changing my hat. So they're like, can you talk to them about adding that? And I came in, I went to check out the suite course, and like 2 days ago, because I hadn't got to play it yet. And I'm like, son of a bitch, the hat's in there. I'm like, it made me laugh so hard. And then the next day at work, I'm like, you'll never guess what happened last night. Like, there's a hat in there.
Who I talked to.
So,
and I'm already like piping the game out to other people too, because again, I haven't played it. But a guy at work, I was telling him about the update you have coming out with the old, like 80s movie stuff, and he's just a nut for that kind of thing. And he's like, what's it called? I'm like, well, it was Oculus, now it's Meta, but there's a Quest 2. You need a Facebook account. He's like, I don't know how to do that. And I'm like, it's probably worth it. And he's like, but it's really going to have those, like, you just, I'm like, he's never cared about it before, but he's like trying to learn the terms. He's like, Oculus? I'm like, I'm sorry I said that. Now it's Meta. And he's like,
right, it changed
Meta. And I'm like, Quest
I just
2.
sent him a link. Here's the Amazon link. Buy this thing.
Here's
trust me.
There's a link to the game here. Here's a walkthrough on how to set it up. Yeah.
Right.
But he's going to probably start asking me about it on the regular. Like, what is it called again?
What's that thing? Yes.
Yeah.
Well, once they get the experience, it sells itself. But it's just getting them in there the first time. It's the people that say, "Oh, I just know I'll be sick." Like, but have you know? I mean, really? I mean, yes, the early versions, they could easily make you sick, but they kind of figured this out. Oh no, I'll get sick. But then they do it and they go, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Yeah,
it'll happen.
And pandemic aside, it was so easy to put a headset on someone. Just shut up and do this.
Just put this on.
And then that happened, and then it's like, now how do I? Videos don't do it justice, and I can't explain it well enough. But
it's exactly right. Well, even our sitting here is, even with our ping pong heads, it's just a wonderful place to just chat in, and it makes all the difference. This would not be the same on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
And we used to just record on Discord with audio chat. We went to VR, and it's like just head nods or just it just makes it work
It does.
so much better.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Oh. Well, Don, I thank you so much for your time there.
Thanks.
If you ever want to come back, I still have other things to talk about and ask questions, but hopefully we'll have you guys back with some Labyrinth show and tells and all that fun stuff. But
we'd love that.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for
what you do. Your art is great. Like, again, the instant I open your webpage, I'm like, I like this guy. Like, just your art. I'm like,
you sent me a link to it, and I was like, I'm going to read all of this. Really cool.
Yeah. I started a Patreon page mostly because I wanted to create an environment to talk about this. So I do a lot of posting to that. And the only reason I used Patreon was it was a way in which people who were participating in it really wanted to participate in the conversation. And ironically, nobody talks about anything. But there's a whole lot of like, please ask me anything. I will talk about anything. Nothing. So I just continue to add to that too. So there's a whole lot of additional sort of, certainly theme park, Disney, that stuff, but a lot about the kind of stuff I'm doing now. And a lot of talk about process, which is my favorite thing, is how to do it and how you go about building things.
That's amazing because
like I said, I all this stuff seems like common sense to me, but it's also I don't know how to I don't have experience doing all this stuff. But if I go,
oh dear,
he'll be back.
He'll be back. Yeah.
But yeah, with the what was it, the township ride, the pumpkin township ride?
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about like doing the cork board and stuff, and it looked like you had like a paper model of what you were like kind of scanning. Like, I would just love to have that sitting on a shelf. That's how cool that stuff looks to me. Like, it's just neat. So
it's just pinned to my wall because I don't have any table space for it.
That's awesome.
But that's the fun part. I mean, the scribbling on a piece of paper with hot glue and stuff. That's the way to design stuff. And then once all that stuff is figured out, then bring it into the computer, and then you can make it something you can experience. Welcome back.
Hey,
this is my imitation of Wookiee. And then,
but like, I will just ping people about your.
Uh-oh.
Are you serious?
Oh, Wookiee, no.
Oh, how embarrassing.
That's all right. It happens to the best of us.
But if you gotta take off, we can have him email you his questions.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, please feel free at any time to contact me. I'm available, and my email address is on my website too. If anybody listening in has any questions. Because I'm more than happy to geek out on process, which excites me.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's what Wookiees was talking about, because that's what he's into, and all very similar mindset, it seems, from what you have. So I'm sure you'll be hearing from him at least on your Patreon.
Well, that's great. Well, I do a lot of lecturing with students who are in the themed entertainment business, and I think that part of being older too is that your job is to give back. And I think probably the greatest gift someone can give back is permission to, I believe you can do this. Let me point you to tools that will help make it easy. And also say, I believe that you'll figure them out and you'll do a great job. And especially artists have a difficult time finding people in their lives that aren't worried that they're going to starve to death if they don't become a doctor or a lawyer. But no, you can make a decent living making pretty places and having a good time doing it.
That's really nice because, everyone needs role models and proof that you can do it. And
you can do it.
A lot of professions, especially in the entertainment and art, don't get that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're giving back.
Yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do now. Okay,
you're banned from talking, Wookiee. You can ask her questions later.
My router sucks. I don't know.
Yeah, just don't move around as much. That could be setting it off. Yeah, there you go. You're still here.
I made it.
Oh,
Taking root.
All right.
Well, excellent. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks again for your time.
Anytime.
Been a pleasure.
And your work.
Yeah. Okay. And Wookie, feel free to contact me outside of this if you have any questions that were missed. I'm available.
I'll write a book and send it an email.
I'll reply to it with another book.
Nice.
Okay, I'll see you guys.
And thanks again. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, everyone, thanks for hanging out, and listening, and watching. Again, the links will be in the show notes, both the audio and video versions. Check out his art at least, but even some of the videos and the speeches of his I caught super interesting. You know, just a lifetime of knowledge in the area and all kinds of mediums. So it's just crazy.
Very inspiring just to pick his brain.
Hopefully we'll have him back and maybe show off some Labyrinth stuff in our space. Maybe we'll see how that goes. But you know, if you want to see a VR verdict ball in the game, you know, there'll be a link there to sign that petition.
What if we just make him in, like, I don't think I'll have the grabbable stinking stuff, but we can just decorate the whole place with VR verdict ping pong ball or golf balls, or we'll just have VR verdict ping pong balls up here. Everything's VR verdict.
We'll ask them straight up, can we get this in the game? And if they say no, we'll just rain balls on them.
Just
till they
out
say
of
yes.
nowhere, one will just bounce off their head like. Apparently, it was the wrong answer. But he seems like a good guy.
Yeah, he's awesome. So yeah, give those guys feedback at Mighty Coconut. Walkabout Mini Golf. If you haven't played it, play it. It's fun. Like I said, there's all kinds of stuff to do while you're not taking your swing, while there's other people playing. It's just so much to do and see, and it's just a good time. And if you ever need people to play with, hit us up. I'll jump in and do a round anytime. So
my router stays connected. I will try to join.
But again, thanks everyone hanging out, listening. Catch you next time. Avoid the bog of eternal stench.
Ludos meow.